So, good afternoon. I'm Joel,
And I'm Claire.
and as many of you know, we're the co-founders, two of the co-founders of the Youth Mental Health Foundation, and we specialise in supporting parents and carers of young people who are struggling with their mental health, often involving self-harm. We guide and coach these parents to play a key role supporting their child's healing. A lot of parents know feel they can do a huge amount to help the child, but don't have the skills or the confidence or the support to do so, and that's what we're here to do. Anyway, so today we're doing another one of our regular Thursday live Facebook live sessions, and in these we pick a topic that's been coming up in our Facebook group and give a few tips and a few pointers and do a little bit of teaching on this. And a question that's been coming up a lot recently, especially from new members joining the group, is about parents desperate to help a child that's struggling with mental health, desperate to find out how their child's doing, desperate to try and support that child, but being constantly frustrated that they're being pushed away and held at arm's distance by their child. Often these are parents that have had much closer relationships with their children, with their child at a previous time, but in this time when they're struggling, they're really feeling they're being pushed away, and that's really frustrating and really upsetting when you know your child needs help but you just don't get the opportunity to give them help. So that's what we're going to be speaking about today, and I think it'd be great to talk about our experience first. Do you want to talk about when we were probably about 10 years ago working with our own daughter, how this was very much the case?
So our daughter Jade, she was only 11 when we found out that she'd been self-harming every day. And at that time, like I said in my story, actually I had two younger babies, really, one 0 and one 2. And her private life and the things that she was doing with her friends slowly built up, and she was just hiding in her room most of the time, and all of those what used to be fun, nice times that we spent together just seemed to whittle down to just, grabbing her dinner and eating in her room and all of those kind of things. And when I found out that she was self-harming and I realised just how bad things had got for her, I just felt absolutely desperate to rekindle that relationship, that closeness that we used to have. But very often I was really met with a closed door. And I know lots of you will be experiencing similar things to that. But the big thing that I realised in this experience was that it's not actually about what I say, it's about how I'm behaving around her. It's about my state of mind, it's about my positivity, all of those kind of things. Because up to about 90% of all of our communication is actually non-verbal. So I know this can be a really hard thing to hear because, obviously when we're not feeling positive and we're not feeling confident about our kids healing and all these kind of things, it's sort of the last thing you want to hear. But we do actually cover a lot of this in our course, so do jump on there and have a look. We've got a module called Get Your Own Oxygen Mask On First, which can really help with that. But we're not going to talk about that now. We're here to... Can
I jump in? Can I jump in this one? So I remember myself, and obviously we've worked with many parents since, and parents are desperate to get involved. They see their child struggling, they want to find out what's the problem, what's troubling you, what's bothering you, and then try and support them out of this very difficult and challenging period they're in. And what we're trying to say here is it's not all about the words you use. Just because you're not having a chance to speak directly with your child about what's challenging them, it doesn't mean you can't support them in another way. And like we said, even without you saying a word to your child, you have a big influence over them through this non-verbal communication. They will pick up on how you are. So if you are anxious and worried and nervous and scared, like the vast majority of us are when we're faced with this situation, they pick up on that. We are communicating to them just non-verbally. So I know we're all desperate to get those deep, meaningful conversations, but we've got to realise that the first step we have is to ensure that our non-verbal communication is supportive and beneficial for them. And to do so, we need to get our own oxygen masks on first. And I'm sure you understand that phrase, perhaps you've remembered it from somewhere. It's what they use on a plane. So before helping a baby, which is obviously your concern, you get your own oxygen mask on first. And it's the same when we're helping a child or a teenager who's struggling with their own mental health. Because, like I said, if you're anxious, if you're nervous, they are going to pick that up from you, and that does not make them feel any better. That will make them feel even more anxious. They perhaps could feel guilty for upsetting you, and it doesn't give them confidence things can and will get better for them. So before we start trying to get into these deep, meaningful conversations, before we start having these long chats with them, we need to make sure that our non-verbal communication is positive and constructive.
Yeah.
So the question I'm sure many of you are going to be asking is like, okay, I agree, but how? Because I'm feeling all over the place at the minute. And the first thing we want to say is, of course you do. Anyone in your situation trying to support a child that's having a really difficult time, to say the least, is going to be really thrown, really upset, really unstable because of this. So it's totally normal. Please don't put any pressure on yourself. But there is a huge amount you can do to build your positivity, to build your confidence that their future is a bright future, to build your wisdom that this is perhaps just a chapter they're going through and not their long term. But that takes time, and we cover that in our free online course. I believe that's the second module.
Yes.
The second module, and we call that getting your own oxygen mask on first. So I think that's the first point for parents desperate to help, desperate to say something. Don't focus at the beginning on what you're trying to say or not getting the opportunity to say. Focus on that non-verbal communication that they are picking up on, whether you like it or not. And it also, I suppose, takes off some of the pressure initially to have a long, meaningful, deep, powerful, intimate conversation, because you are having a really profound influence on them just by your state of being and how you are in the home.
Yeah, that's right. And then we encourage parents to focus on what we call acts of service. Actually, sometimes we refer to it as love bombing in our course. So this is basically just showing and demonstrating unconditional love to your child. Yeah, even if you don't receive any love back at the moment, that is okay. So by acts of service, what I mean are things like, taking them up a hot chocolate in the evening before they go to bed, or you have to think it through. Think about the things that your child would really appreciate. Making sure their favourite snacks are in the cupboard when they come home from school, if they're at school. What else? Other things. Come on.
On the spot now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's loads of things you could do. But you know your child, obviously, better than anyone else. So you have to think through the kinds of things that they would really appreciate. And don't be surprised if you don't get a thank you.
Right, I want to jump in again. So I think what's very helpful is to understand why we're doing these things. And what we're talking about here is us rebuilding and re-strengthening that relationship by showering them with acts of service or demonstrating our unconditional love, because we've been pushed away, we're not getting the opportunity to speak, but we can make gestures, we can do things which slowly, you could say millimetre by millimetre, pull them back closer to us. And we have had, I think we can safely say, thousands of parents use this acts of service, or love bombing as we actually call it in our programme, to slowly start rebuilding that bridge to your child. And we use making the hot chocolate. We've had people make hot chocolates with squirty cream and sparklers in them and this kind of thing, but the idea is that we start just to demonstrate love to them by these acts of service and not expecting any recognition or thanks by return. And we're going to keep doing those things, and every time we do it, it is registered, it is noticed by our child, and we are investing in that relationship in a way that they appreciate. They probably don't want to speak to you at the moment. We haven't earned the right to have this in-depth conversation with them. They probably feel we don't understand at all, but by us doing these acts of service, by us doing these things which just touch them in a small way and not asking for any recognition, any thanks at all from that, we are just investing in and strengthening and deepening that relationship, which in time should lead to us having a close relationship and perhaps those conversations arising. But we always recommend this love bombing of your child.
That's right. And the key here is that we don't stop. So we start to do this love bombing, and we would encourage you to even formulate some kind of routine around that. So it might be that you take them a hot drink every evening, and you make their bed every evening, or whatever it is, just some small things, almost like a routine of love bombing that your child will come to understand and accept as normal. It's what they expect, it's what always happens. And the key is that we don't stop. So even on those days where we really don't feel good ourselves, when we're really struggling with our own emotions, when we're not able to be kind of positive or hopeful about situations or things that have happened, we keep on doing these things day in, day out. And you can be sure of one thing, like Joel said, it all goes in, it's all registered in there. They clock it, they know it. Yeah, and what you're doing is you're building up indisputable evidence. Is that the right word? Indisputable evidence that you love them no matter what. Your love is unconditional. It doesn't matter what they do, what they say, how they behave. Even if they're rude, whatever, you are still delivering on these things. And this is a season, so we don't know how long you're going to have to love bomb them for them to slowly start to allow you into their world in some way. It may be, a short space of time, it may be many months. For me, it was several months of really working on this acts of service for my daughter before she really started to open up and let me into her world. But we would just encourage you to keep on going every single day, and you will see.
Something I want to jump in on this is an objection that we have had quite a few times in our live groups, and I think emails that have come through as well, is like, this sounds a bit like spoiling my child, so do you want to talk about that? Is this actually, are we in danger of spoiling our child by doing this love bombing or acts of service?
Yeah, so lots of parents ask that. We believe not, really, because a child who's struggling with their mental health simply needs a lot more attention and time and evidence that you love them come what may, than a child who is not going through these kind of struggles. So particularly with self-harm, there's so much shame involved in that for the young person. They feel so shameful about what they've done, and they need to see this kind of extra evidence that we accept them, that we love them, and that our love isn't going to stop. So in a young person's mind, which is very much underdeveloped, they often come to the conclusions that because they've behaved in this certain way, that the mum or dad is just not going to love them. The love is just going to stop. And that's partly why some of them hide away in their rooms and things like that. They feel that they are making themselves unlovable. Yeah, so we need to really break through that and just keep on going, keep on showing them every single day. Yeah, it doesn't matter how bad things are. I love you. I'm here for you. I'm always going to be here for you. And look, I do these things every day. No matter whether I get thanks or appreciation, that doesn't matter. This love is unconditional.
That's right.
That's what I need to hear.
I think I've probably already said this, but I know this is the case for me and many, many parents we've worked with since. We kind of feel that because we're the parent, we have the right to help, or I suppose it's some natural right to help. But what we're trying to say here is that's obviously not being accepted by your child or teen. And so what we're doing in this work is we are earning the right for them to open up to us. We're not trying to force help on them, force conversations on them that they don't want to have, but we're we're investing in this relationship, we're strengthening it, we're deepening it, ideally to the point where they feel comfortable to ask us for help, not have us offer help that's rejected. So this acts of service, again, it's continually and consistently doing things to show your love, to invest in that relationship, so that's one thing that will contribute to them potentially wanting to talk to you.
Yeah.
I think before we go on too long, because we're trying to keep these as kind of quite short and to the point, but Another thing that I suppose it depends with every family and every dynamic in every family, but taking opportunities to share time with a young person where possible is another thing we can do to start rebuilding that relationship, to getting to the point where the young person asks us for help. So do you want to talk about sharing time?
Yeah, so sharing time, in my experience and with other parents, kind of evolves from beginning with this acts of service and demonstrating this unconditional love. But sharing time is really a passive experience. So again, there's no pressure to have that deep, meaningful conversation. It's literally about you and your son or daughter being comfortable in the same room.
Yeah, it's a good starting point.
That's it. You know, there's not like that awkward feeling or that feeling in the air that
or coming in from school or finishing dinner and just running up to the room, the door slamming and wanting nothing to do with you. We're finding opportunities where we are spending time together in a way they're not forced to do or handcuffed to the sofa to be there, but finding times and sharing time is doing things with them that they enjoy doing.
Actually, I mean, the obvious one is just giving them lifts places. So I mean, unless your young person literally doesn't want to go out, which we do have, we see a lot. But so just sitting in the car is a really good sharing time opportunity. But also things like watching TV.
That was a big one for us, wasn't it? So in our family, when we were supporting our first daughter when she was struggling with her mental health, we found that there was a series she enjoyed, and she was happy for us to watch it with her, and it was a great shared experience we could have where we were all enjoying, we were sharing time together. She wasn't alone in her room, and again, just spending time. I think we got through about 6 or 7 series of this.
We have to tell them what it was. It was RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't know if it's still out. I'm sure it's still out there, but it was. I watched seasons and seasons of this. It's kind of the equivalent of something like Love Island, which my daughter thought was just amazing. So whatever they like, it's got to be on their terms. So it would never have worked me saying, let's watch Avatar or something like that I might like. It has to be something they really enjoy. Series are great because there's so much of them.
What we hear a lot about watching football with your boy as well. A lot of dads we're working with are just spending time watching a game on Sunday on TV with their son or something. So it's just about, what's the word? It's about spending time with them doing something they enjoy. And again, it's another thing which is going to strengthen and build those connections, build that relationship slowly but surely in a really positive way, which leads towards closer and more open conversations. I think what we're trying to say here is there's no magic answer. We don't want you to dive in there with a very meaningful question. We want you to invest in that relationship, so your efforts to initially just find out how they aren't rebuffed, but because you've invested, because you've built trust and empathy and honesty and strength, that relationship strengthened and deepened, and they're more inclined to be able to want to spend time with you and talk to you. So I think that's probably
I've just got one last thing to say, and then we're going to finish. So most parents are really surprised to hear that Jade and I actually never spoke directly about self-harm. I can't remember, but I probably tried in the very early days and learnt my lesson that wasn't a good place to go. What I did was what we have been explaining. I invested my everything into the relationship. We talked, once we started sharing time, which is what we're recently just talking about now, we began to talk about everything, not deep, meaningful things, but about everything else. And that was really like getting my foot in the door. And that's how this went for us. But we never actually spoke about self-harm. We never had those kind of conversations.
So take the pressure off yourself, take the pressure off your child by trying to start these deep, meaningful conversations, and start investing in that relationship, deepening and strengthening by those love bombing acts of service, by spending time with them. And if you stick with that consistently and demonstrate you're there for them and demonstrate your love, you will start to earn opportunities for more open conversations. We're not trying to take massive leaps, we're starting with baby steps, and that's a little bit of advice and guidance for that. Brilliant. Okay, well, we're going to we are trying to keep these short, so we're going to cut that off now. Hope that's been useful, and remember to join us every Thursday at 1 p.m. for 10 to 20 minutes tips and guidance on how better to support a child struggling with mental health and self-harm. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye.